right, thank you guys. Welcome to the PCH Pit podcast. First, we have the usual disclaimer. Before we get started, we have the usual. We have to make the usual disclaimer. Any views or opinions shared on this show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of PCH Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, South Carolina First, and any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind this show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District and South Carolina District. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you hear us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. With that being said, I'm Thomas Priego, and I'm a mentor for Team 6829 Ignite Robotics.
I am David Allred, a mentor for 4451 Robots Garage in South Carolina, as well as our second team, 4864 Innovation Station.
And I'm Brian Carlson with the team at 6829 Ignite Robotics.
And we would be remiss if we didn't have a brief shout out to our confirmed not a witch producer, Ian, behind the scenes.
Yes, the ghost.
The ghost.
I still want to bring a duck and see.
Yeah. Right. With that being said, let's get into our reactions from week 3. We only had one event going on this week at Gwinnett, as hosted at Discovery High School in Gwinnett, Georgia. And just a brief rundown of the awards. The winners were the Alliance Captain 1771, their first pick 1833, and their third bot team 4468, the Fernbank Lynx. Finalists were Team 1683, Techno Titans 5109, Gladiator Robotics, and 8865. Impact was won by Team 7538, Metal Mountain. And EI was won by 1683, who confirmed their silver Kling Bling. With that being said, David and Brian, what things stood out the most, especially when it comes to ranking at the Gwinnett event?
So I thought it was very interesting. This is sort of the meta of pick something and do it well. And so Metal Mountain came in with a swerve pancake with a climber, right? Played some great D and hit that climb and played the ranking game and ranked really well and was able to be Alliance captain. Additionally, 1771, 1683, 1261, 1833 again started putting up consistent production. You can tell that 1261 being their first match was a little more rusty than the other teams. 1771 just hit the ground running, and they were in practice matches just doing some really great stuff.
Yeah. It was definitely really interesting. You could really much tell, especially early on, that the first seed was going to be a 2-horse race between 1771 and 1833. Just because 1833 had the first 6 RP match in Georgia. And they, in fact, had 2 back-to-back, one with, I think, 50s Metal Crusaders. I think it's 5293. And then they had another one with Team 1771. So it was definitely looked like it was going to be one of those two.
Yeah, I was watching part of the event, and Georgia's now hitting its stride and getting their scores on up there. Of course, 1771 by themselves were part of that, but again, what I saw from the matches that I watched, it just seemed like everybody was playing a little bit better.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out is teams that are, if you look at how 1771 played, they played totally different between the quals match and playoffs. You could definitely tell that in quals, they're very much aware of, they were able to basically solo coral the reef. And so you could tell there were cycles and how they placed. They're focused on getting that coral RP early, and that in playoffs, they sort of switched that up. And they weren't as worried about the coral RP. They would start just doing all level 4 versus just working their way down. So important to pay attention of where you are at on that coral RP, because that will become more common.
Yeah, and that's really something you're seeing worldwide. Like with 1690 Orbit, you saw it really early with them, where in quals they were doing 5L4, 5, bing, 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 and then they would look to fill it out. But in quals or in finals, it's definitely really important that you start with the high points and kind of work your way down. So that's definitely how like the meta ends up being worked. One thing that like was really interesting and but like bringing into the ranking game with 75-38 ranking, I think they ranked third, but because interpicking ended up the 2 seed alliance captain, because they were ranked so high, we actually saw a kind of mini scorch where I think they were denied by 3 teams, 1683, 1414, and I'm blanking on the third. Shoot. It was 3381, I think, the Robo Dragons. All 3 of them declined, and it was super interesting to see how that affected alliance selection. Huge shout out to Metal Mountain's strategy team and picking team. It was really impressive. It seemed like they were prepared and knew like what was going to happen going in, because the guy, their representative, would just walk up and say, "Hey, we want this team." All right, they said no and just was unfazed, unprompted, and ready to go for the next one. And I think that really is what kind of sealed Gwinnett, because it denied 1683 and 7451 or 1261 or even 5293 robots in that tier to kind of get together and build an alliance that might be able to challenge 1771 and 1833. Which again is kind of one of the dynamics of why 75-38 being there kind of clinched that event. And so I think that's just the things that teams need to look out for and be aware of if there's a team there that can act as a blocker and using that. I know I've been preaching that all season, but using alliance selection as a weapon, it was really nice to see 75-38. It was very apparent they had a list of robots they wanted to kill or burn before they went and picked 1261. So it was impressive to see how prepared they were to play that game.
Now that we've had all robots playing their first match, the alliance selection has gone very smoothly. There hasn't been any overages yet. So it's good to see that with this change, that's being effective.
There are 3. It's funny you say that, Brian. There are 3 robots that are doing the week 4, week 5 back to back. So there are still a couple robots that haven't played yet. But yes, generally speaking,
that whole drama around the new alliance selection picking is just a nothing burger. It runs smooth with the new season.
Yeah. I think the nice part about it is there's no longer that 3-minute wait for a first pick from a certain team that likes to seed first a lot in the state of Georgia. That's all I'll say.
I will say this: when there's a 3-minute delay in the video feed and they're in the cafeteria, and they're not their fault, right? Anyway, I was going to say something else. The one thing that they did make a minor tweak. I noticed this between Dalton and Gwinnett, and that was I think we hit the bottom of the first round, and we were trying to prepare for our second pick, and they took down the alliances and picked and put all the sponsored logos up there, and they quickly put it back. This time they definitely put the sponsor logos in a small off to the side, so you kept that pick list up there during that 2-minute break.
Yeah, it looks like there's a standard pattern for us once everybody use.
Yeah. And even talking to being friends with Kyle and a couple of the MCs, Big First has been very adamant, like the script that the MCs use during the alliance selection is pretty set, and they're not really allowed to meander from that. So we really won't see any like Kyle taking a nap on the top of, I forget what it was called in 2019.
The Hab station.
Yeah, we won't have him taking a nap in the Hab station because the team's taking 8 minutes to pick.
Yeah. I also want to do a shout out to the AV team. The overhead view now has the 2 action spots, but you still see the whole full field. And I really love that, especially this game, because it's hard to see anything underneath the barge when they're trying to climb. and those action shots are nice.
Yeah, I agree. The audio video feed was very nice.
Yeah.
Easy to watch.
Yeah, very, very easy to watch. With that being said, I think one thing and one good takeaway I saw from Gwinnett was we had a bit more a lot more teams start playing off of the floor when it came to Coral than we did at previous events. I know at Dalton, and refresh my memory if I'm missing a team, but it was pretty much 1648 was was the only team that we saw picking up Coral, or the only one that really just jumps out to me, picking up Coral at the ground. But we really, really saw at Gwinnett a lot more teams start doing it. 74-51, 17-71, 12-61. I think, did 52-93 Meadow Crusaders have a floor pickup, Brian?
I think so. Now I'm curious.
If you could just look that up on the Blue Alliance while we're going. But it raises some valid questions, and something I really picked up on watching 1771's matches on its to floor intake or to not intake. Because something I've noticed, especially when you have the combo of floor intake team, non-floor intake team, a lot of the times the floor intake team likes to just put a ton of Coral down on the ground and kind of muddy up the field or the reef or the sea, as First would like me to say.
Floor, yes.
The sea floor, to say on brand. But that tends to get in the way of other robots that have the quote unquote traditional hopper intakes. And something that I noticed from 1771 is they primarily were intaking off of the chute, except when they were partnered with a floor intake team. And I really saw them, the only match, and again, granted, I was not able to watch every match. There was a dead zone when I was competing in my adult soccer league. Real so bad, undefeated so far this season. But they weren't really primarily using the floor pickup, except when they were with other floor pickups. So I just wanted to know your guys' perspective on how you guys feel floor pickups, especially as we're going late in the season, where teams are figuring out ways to add them, or where we're going to be at DCMP, where a lot of these teams are all going to be together, how that ends up impacting the flow of play, especially considering the majority of the high functioning cycling robots aren't picking up off the floor.
So I think at DCMP, it's just gonna be about cycles, right? You're gonna pick the team that's gonna cycle the fastest. Floor intakes make that easier, and I don't think anybody's gonna be with some of the requirements around deep climber. Gonna all of a sudden add a floor intake that's probably too late to swap to. I mean, maybe some team can do it. I wouldn't want to do that. So I think, you look at a 1771 picking Bean, right? They're like, just give me all the firepower I can on the Coral and get that burned down as much as possible. So if you have a good floor intake, you will probably be picked over a human player feeder, but I'm not sure how many are going to be able to pull that off as effectively.
Yeah, it really comes down to a number of effective floor pickup teams. Yeah. And so right now you have one that is effective that plays a lot of wall. And so I just don't think in either one of our districts, like there's like 4 or 5 great floor pickup teams that are going to get together and just wipe out the field. It'll just be who's fastest at Coral cycling in our districts.
Yeah.
Now, going to Houston, story.
Yeah,
the effective floor pickup people will be highly valued.
Yeah. And then another thing is just climb. I think the most consistent climbers are the ones who are right now looking like the ones that are going to rank the highest. Yeah. Case in point, 7538, who looking at it, I think had a perfect in-game EPA or close to perfect in-game EPA at this most recent event. of just climb. Don't stop, can't stop, won't stop. I think that is going to end up being the biggest driver for what your quals performance looks like, especially considering the robots that I've seen that can solo reef in either district is a list of one team. So I think it's just maximize climbs and then RPs where possible, I think is the name of the game.
Yep.
So do we have anything left to add before we get into the previews for next week?
I do have one more thing to add. There was a second competition that a Georgia team went to. That was teams 8866 Innovation Robotics. They headed up to North Carolina to the Asheville event. I think they ranked around 6 or 7. They look very similar to like they did at Gainesville, basically cycling hard. Link placed first, picked 8866, and they went on to win another Blue Banner. And they will be coming to Statesboro next. As a segue to
well-practiced team with a couple of blues. Not too bad. They must feel really good. I mean, really, really proud of their team this year. They've been great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just one question about. I didn't really watch a ton of the event. Was there a lot of algae net play? I saw 1771 doing it with their system, but
so there was definitely more.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead, Brian.
No, go on.
There was definitely more. 1414 actually, I think, scored a couple off the ground in autonomous. But they're a unicorn, just like
Right.
Lambda 9486, if
Right.
I name a number correct. 9477. Thank you, producer Ian. Y'all, he's awesome. Their main goal being to shoot algae. I saw the mechanisms do it a couple times. Bean did it a couple times because they added on a mech, but it seemed most of the time when Bean was they're still just mainly displacing algae. But that's definitely something that I think more teams are going to be doing, especially going into the weeks. Because I think coral is going to start getting maxed out here, and I think algae is going to end up being the big separator.
Yeah, I agree with that. Right now, people are trying to get those coral points. And so unless you're 1771 that can really cycle and really fast, the time it takes to drive over the barge, place it, and come back for 4, even though it may be 4 points versus 2 or 3 on the coral, you really want to nail that coral RP. And so a lot of teams will just drop them. Let's just keep going what we're trying to do.
Right. Yeah. And something that was unique to 1771 is they actually don't place coral or algae in the net. They kind of throw it. Right. They go up and flick it, which I really like because when they miss, they're throwing the algae. Typically, they're missing far, and they throw the algae and it ends up being litter on the other opponent's scoring thing. That's something I like. Is like when you miss, you still get in the way and hinder the opponent.
So that was a defensive strategy, not a
right.
Yeah.
So problems we wish we had, right? When they get to Worlds, right? You definitely don't want to do that, right? Because you're
just giving the opponents points.
Yeah,
but it's like
they'll dial it in.
Right
for right now.
It's like, boy, that's the problem I want to have, right?
Yeah. Oh no, I have to make sure my algae shot doesn't miss far. Things I wish I could say this year. So with that being said, I think we'll move on to our previews. We do have 2 events we need to preview this week. We have Statesboro going on in Georgia and the Charleston event going on in South Carolina. First, we'll go over just the Statesboro competition. This is the first time we've ever gone to Statesboro, but this is what traditionally used to be the Charleston spot in week 4. With that being said, the defending PCH week 4 champions were 2974, 7451, and 8865. Of those three, only 2974 is going to be at this event. Some robots to look out for and interesting robots at this event. We have Walton, who has coming in with 2 blue banners with an impact and a win at Dalton. Team 8866, who has already won 2 events this year, both with Team 9496, being Asheville and Gainesville. Team 1648 and 6829, the 2 teams that lost in finals at Dalton, and Team 3635 Flying Legion. So, Brian, I'll open it up to you. What are some predictions and things to look out for at the Statesboro competition?
My prediction is Walton's going to rank 1, and if they don't have the climb, they're going to be the first non-climber ranking 1. They were going strong, and if 6919 was really, really good at hitting their climb, almost like the consistency of being and then just nailing it down every time. So without lacking a consistent climber to challenge Walton, I think they're going to rank first and have the pick of the litter.
Yeah, and I think they wouldn't be the first non-climb rank 1 in a Georgia event, because 9496 seeded first at Gainesville. But Gainesville's week 1 and doesn't count. Yeah, first Georgia team.
Their district points don't count. Their win doesn't count, right?
Yeah. Huge shout out for Link taking away like 76 district points at Gainesville competition. Huge shout out. Thank you, guys. Because I think they seeded first, won an award. So they got.
They could win an award.
Yeah, an out of district team can. The only thing they can't do
win.
is win EI, RA, or EI.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
They can do everything else.
And they did.
And they did, in fact, do everything else. I think some things to look out for is I think we're going to see a lot better cycling, especially from the teams that went to Dalton. I know, just speaking for us and the limited speaking I was able to do with the Walton folks when we were at DE and speaking from G3. First off, I would like to sincerely not apologize to Team 1648 for saying that they didn't have vision at Dalton. I did originally apologize, but then was told not to by a couple of their mentors. So I'm not going to. But a lot more teams here should have vision dialed in. I know we, being 6829, literally got ours working last night. Knock on wood, it's probably broken already. So I think we'll see a lot better scoring. Brian, do you have any dark horse teams to look out for outside of the ones we've already mentioned?
I do not. I do think we are going to see an elevation in the coral, right? We're going to see drivers who don't have vision are driving better. And I know G3's made some improvements to be more consistent and trying to speed up. So I think you're going to see that in general. But I still think you're probably going to look at 4 or 5, maybe 6 bots that are going to be there in the contention at the end.
Yeah. I definitely don't think it's going to be like Dalton, where it's who can get with Walton and win. I think there's a decent chance, especially with the field and the improvements that we expect, that this can turn into a four horse pony show. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. No, I do know that Walton was trying to bring vision online, and I think they have plans on getting a deep climb. So we'll see what they end up with. But when Walton's at the qualifier, you're going to have to deal with that and do your best to have a shot at trying to outseed them.
Yeah, they do have the most blue banners in Georgia for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are for event wins. So with that being said, I think that brings a close to our states whatever preview. It's impossible to pronounce. Plus, they're like
Okay.
they're 4 hours away, man. Like they don't count.
Okay, fair enough.
Teams that live 4 hours away from me, I'm sorry, but you guys live atrociously far. With that being said, David, lead the way on your Charleston preview.
Yes. So, event number 2, rinse and repeat. I'm expecting that we'll have 34 teams competing at North Charleston, the same as Hartsville, minus that one team from Michigan, which will not be there to stir the mix. So really, this event comes down to who has made improvements, whether it is in vision or mechanical systems and whatnot, and then who gets the better schedule possibly to rank. Now, as far as this is the second year we've done this event. The defending champs are 1102 Making Magic, 343 Metal Emotion, and 1319 Flash was our inaugural event last year. This year, we're about to look out for our again Making Magic 1102, 4451, Hartsville winner 343, the Hartsville winner. And I'm going to go with 75 due west, who was right there the whole time. Now, as far as other people that I expect to see improve and then make more noise are 3490 Viper Drive, who made it to match 13 with 342 last time. Both of those teams, I'm expecting a significant just amount of practice and upgrades, and then 281, the Green Villains, and 1287, I believe, will also be making more noise. The big thing I think that we're going to see is I believe we will see more Algae Net game. Both 281 and 342 sport a West Coast Products claw design. So both of those teams are capable to do net, although they didn't do that much or attempt that much in the Hartsville event. 1319 was a kind of a floor shooter, not similar to IHOT, but more along the lines of Lambda, where they have a grabber that pulls it out of the reef and then they can shoot it towards the net. So I'm expecting those people to come along, and then the most consistent algae player, 6167, the CB Bear bots. I'm assuming they'll be a bit more on their game. As far as the rank point goes, 343 is probably still in best shape as one of the most consistent scorers in the state, plus one of the most consistent climbers. So the only way out of that mess is to focus on core rank points. So most people probably focused on just scoring last time, and now I think we'll see more core focus, or core rank point focus, I should say. There was 2 matches at the Hartsville event that got the core rank point. I expect to see that increase significantly, again, according to the scheduling gods. So we'll see how that shakes out. I think there are several different combinations that can win this event. It's not like a walk away with 1 or 2 teams.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting with the size of South Carolina, with how you're literally seeing all of your friends again. It ends up making the event a bit more different. Whereas like at Georgia, we have, yes, you end up having a similar crew like run with you. Like you'll have the 1-3 crew, the 2-4 crew, the 3-5 crew. So you'll see a lot of similar faces. But there's enough cross-pollination where we'll have a couple teams coming over that are doing 1-4 or that are doing 3-5 or that are doing, 1-5, that you kind of get a lot of intermingling. That I think Charleston ends up being, I think it'll be very interesting to see, do the same things happen or are other teams able to improve and kind of leapfrog?
Yeah, we're going to have to evolve our game. We're going to have to evolve our game to do something different. Otherwise, it could be a rinse and repeat, and I don't think that's how it's going to play out. So the schedule and those extra ranking points are going to make a big difference in this event of who gets to pair up. because there are multiple combinations that can win this thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, definitely in alliance selection, it becomes a rock, paper, scissors thing where Alliance 1 beats Alliance 2 but loses to Alliance 3, but Alliance 3 loses to Alliance 2, so you're just kind of looking at matchups and trying to see how does the bracket end up so you end up, in the optimal setup. So that's definitely something to look out for, because I definitely think that this is a more, as I've watched South Carolina, which has been a lot. I've admittedly watched them a lot less than I've watched Georgia. But what I've kind of gathered is I think where Georgia has a higher top end, I think with 1771 and 1833, I think they like there's a higher top end in Georgia. South Carolina definitely has a bigger middle of the pack. Whereas like in Georgia, it's 1771's like here, then Beans like here, and then 1683 and a couple others like here, and then it kind of just falls out. It definitely feels like South Carolina, there's just a big chunk of teams here, like in between here and here, and they can all kind of kill each other.
Yeah, now I was expecting the number 7 Lions to make it to finals last time. They were just an unfortunate field disconnect in match 13, and so that happens, and the number 3 Alliance advances to the finals instead of the 7. But it's going to be one of those events where it's just the rock, paper, scissors matchup. And there's a couple of, I'd call them weird pairings that could happen that are very dangerous, and they may not be aware of it, but I will not state those.
Yes. Brian and I very intentionally, if there's a team out there who is like, why don't Thomas and Brian talk about us at all? We are aware of you. We are very intentionally not talking about you, so other teams don't start thinking about you.
Yeah.
So if you're not being mentioned, there's a decent chance that there is a super secret magic strategy that we feel
exactly
that y'all would really, really fit into.
Yep.
So just going to get ahead of that one.
Yeah. So the other thing, going back to Gwinnett, right, about where people are coming from, right? There was a scorch for Meadow Mountain, and they picked 1261. That alliance with one coral bot, right? One offensive bot for the most part. They got some help in the 3 bot, right? That made it to the finals of the lower bracket, and outside of maybe a glitch here or there, they could have been in the finals against 1771. So if you figure out your strategy and you sort of execute, there's other ways to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then one thing to note, South Carolina, I believe Team Update 18 was posted today, or was it yesterday? I just saw it today on Chief.
Yep.
But the South Carolina District Champs has been shrunk from 35 to 28 teams.
Correct.
35 to 28 teams. So there are those of you who your extra play is not guaranteed anymore. So definitely be aware of where you're at district point wise. There are a couple of y'all who will not be going to district champs now. So that's just something, so teams aren't caught off guard. That's something that we need to, or y'all should be aware of.
Yeah. And I thought it was published that way. I was on the planning committee, and so I knew the 28 number, but I didn't really read the book. I knew the number. So apparently it's been officially updated.
Yeah. I want to be honest, I don't read that part of the manual either. So
like, okay,
yeah.
I read the game rules, move on. But
there was a Q&A talking about when our algae scored in the barge, and they asked about
that answer was weird.
Yeah, it was. They didn't want to say the human player. They didn't comment.
They didn't answer.
It's just like, you have 3 seconds to get it there, right? I guess you can launch it Space Jam and take 3 seconds to eventually get there.
No, they didn't really say that. They said the scores are assessed at 3 seconds.
Yeah,
that's all they said.
So I'm gonna take that as, if my human player is there and the processor arrives late, keep shooting until
3 seconds.
until 3 seconds or someone tells you to stop.
I'm about to say, if it rolls
and
a
then
10,
be ready to argue like hell.
yeah. If it's in front of you, it goes in. Let them make the call, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep shooting.
Yeah. So not that I would ever encourage someone to intentionally break a rule, but doing something to force them to make a call.
Exploit that edge case.
Right. It's more of a.
I wouldn't.
Well,
Yes. It's more of a. I'm not sure I want to count my human player counting faster or slower than the referee. Just you score it. They will have already counted when they need to count.
Yeah. So, and again, be ready to defend yourself with the rules and have the Q&A pulled up if a ref tries to say, well, you shot it after the buzzer. So be ready to say, no, you can still go for 3 seconds.
exactly.
Your mileage may vary per head ref.
Yeah. I like how the GDC leaves those things ambiguous all the time. Read the rule book and interpret the missing statement.
The rule stands as written.
I think it's nice because it definitely ambiguity allows for different varying different design choices based on how people read the rules and read priorities. But for some things like that, you don't need to be ambiguous.
It's
no
a score,
team,
and the refs need to be consistent, right?
yeah, have it say, hey, explicitly say, human player, you can shoot 3 seconds later, and I think I know they have it set toward now the field flashes green or flashes like there's an LED cue of when the scoring deadline is. But I think having a audio cue for refs and for human players, a second audio cue of, hey, scoring ends now. Because that leaves things, because that way you can have a ref watching the human player and listening for something instead of watching for LEDs in one eye. And
it should be an audio signal of the shot clock buzzer, basically.
Yeah, add that to the list of things we wish Big First would do. I won't complain about it because I'm hoping they will fix their hotel situation. But that's all the hot button topics I wish to talk about today.
Okay, let's go to the hotel topic. Oh my God.
Yeah. Either that or debate that one angry cake guy on Chief Delphi about districts.
Angry in person. Yes.
Yes. So that being said, I think we have reached we are pulling up on an hour here on my timer. Do y'all have anything more we would like to add?
Good luck. Enjoy. And keep
I'd say the game
players.
The game is getting more and more fun to watch as teams are getting better at driving.
Yep.
Yeah. I think seeing 182 in a Georgia event was really cool. Something that was wild is I think I was watching No, it wasn't SVR. It was Sacramento where the Poofs were at. And I watched them face the 8 seed and they won 200 to 167. And I was like, wow, that 8 seed would have won an event in Georgia. Yeah. So I think it's nice to see how, and probably in South Carolina too.
Oh, they would have wiped us out.
So it's nice to see where Georgia and the scores are steadily creeping up to what the rest of the world looks like.
Yep, we need to get up there. There's 200.
Yep. So with that being said, I think we'll sign up for a night. Please remember, those of you who are competing this weekend, make sure all your connections are nice and secure. Try and show up to every match. Be ready to climb. And most importantly, be ready to have fun and learn. At the end of the day, that is what is most important. Second most is winning. Third most is safety. And that's how we'll end the show.
Well,
good night and good luck.